Chatters, chatties, welcome home for a Great American Chat, a podcast where we chat about great American media. I'm Chad Maurice, and this past weekend, Great American Valentines kicked off on Great American Family with the premiere of Romantic Rewrite. So that's what we're chatting about today. The movie stars Kristina Cole, who you might remember from Christmas in Pine Valley, which premiered this past Christmas season, part of the Great American Christmas lineup. It also stars Russell Quinn. The synopsis says a talented romantic book editor is tasked with helping a mystery writer incorporate romance into the next book in his best-selling series. He volunteers to be her fake date for her best friend's beach wedding in return for her editing skills. The movie is directed by Damien Romay and is written by Jennifer Edwards and Jennifer Miller. Here is our cast of characters. We have Ivy. She's a book editor and workaholic, and she works for a publishing company. There's Reed. He is a best-selling mystery author. Ivy has a sister named Clarissa. Zach. Zach is Ivy's ex. And what's interesting about this actor, his real first name is Reed, which is the first name of the male lead in this movie. Bree, that's Reed's sister. And then Aunt Edith is thrown in there for comical relief. So the movie opens up, we see an overhead shot of a town on water and some skyscrapers. We don't know what city it is. They don't tell us. We meet Ivy and her boss. They are talking about some notes that Ivy took on a book that she critiqued. And we find out that Ivy is getting ready to go to the beach with her sister. Reed meets with Ivy's boss, and he does not like the notes that Ivy took on his book. He says, "Are you serious?" He gets up and says any other publisher would publish this just the way it is. So he storms out. He goes to look for Ivy and finds her in her office. He says, "What does a romance editor know about mystery writing?" And she says, "What does a mystery writer know about romance?" She says, "The romantic parts of the book do not work. They are like a bad egg in a cake. They ruin the whole thing." They argue about her notes. Then she says, "Excuse me, I gotta go." She goes outside, meets her sister, and they are on their way to the beach to attend a wedding. Just then, Zach, Ivy's ex-boyfriend, walks up. Zach. He brags about some magazine that did an article on him, and then he invites them out for drinks, and they say, "Huh, no way, bucko." He tells Ivy he has a date for the wedding, and Ivy's sister says, "What a relief, because Ivy also has a date." And Ivy is like, "What? I do?" Then we see Reed talking to his sister, and she gives him keys to her beach house. She says, "The first draft of your book sucks, but your editor notes are spot on." Now, how did she see Ivy's notes? Did he give his book to his sister and Ivy's notes to Reed? Apparently. He must have. So Ivy and her sister drive to Miami for this wedding. She checks into her room, then goes to get something to eat. She orders a lobster roll at some roadside food truck. Then she sees Zach and his date, and she's like, uh-oh. She slaps on some sunglasses, and she ducks down behind the food truck. Reed yells at her and says, "Hey, you took my sandwich." She jumps up and dumps the sandwich on the ground and looks up and sees that it's Reed. They both say, "What are you doing here?" So this is their second cute meet. Their first cute meet was at the office. This is the second time they meet. He asks, "Are you stalking me?" He then asks, "What are you doing here? Who are you hiding from?" She says, "I'm not hiding, and I'm here for a wedding." He tells her, "I read your notes on my book, and you are wrong." She tells him, "Your characters lack depth and interest, and they are boring." She then says, "Okay, I was hiding from my ex and his date." Then we see Ivy talking to her sister. And check out those earrings. They look like little magnets. And I'm wondering if they are magnetic. Are they designed to pull Hunky Reed into her life? We shall see. Ivy says to her sister, "What am I going to do? You told Zach I have a date." Her sister says, "Why don't you create a fake date?" Ivy says, "Hey, that's one of my favorite tropes." Her sister suggests using an app to find a date. Ivy says, "No way. I don't want any part of those apps." Her sister says, "Okay, then tell everyone the truth about Zach." What is the truth about Zach? Ivy says, "No, the less they know, the better." Then we meet Sarah, the bride-to-be. Ivy is standing on the dock of her family's beach house, scrolling through these dating apps that her sister told her to use. She looks up and she sees Reed cooking on a grill next to her, and she realizes, oh, nuts, he's staying right next to me. He says, "I have something for you. I rewrote the first part of my story after reading your notes, and I want to know your opinion." He wants her to read the notes right then and there. She says, "I haven't had breakfast yet." He says, "No problem." He opens up her fridge to make her breakfast, but it is completely empty. So he goes to the grocery store to get her some food, and she begins reading his rewrite. She says the rewrite is much better, but the love interests don't have any conflict. He says, "I want you to help me write my book." She says, "Well, I would love to, but I'm too busy. I'm working hard to get a promotion at work, and I have this wedding I have to attend." She gets a pop-up message on her phone from a dating app that she signed up for. And he asks, "Are you trying to find a date for this wedding you have to go to? What do you need a date for?" She says, "Because my sister told everyone I was bringing a date." Then he asks, "Why did you break up with your boyfriend?" And she avoids the question again. Zach sees her walking with Reed and wonders who that guy is. So he follows her right into her family's house without knocking or anything. Can you say stalker? Zach asks, "Is this the guy that you're bringing to the wedding?" Reed plays along and says yes, but Ivy says no. Zach asks, "Did she friend zone you?" Reed says, "I'm definitely not in the friend zone." And Ivy says, "That we can agree," which is funny because she can't stand him. So this was a funny scene. This scene had some good dialogue. They are cleaning up the dishes from breakfast. Ivy's family walks in, and Reed says, "Quick, we need to make up a story about how we met and convince them that we are dating." He says, what should we tell them? Should we tell them that you gave me notes on my book and that helped me discover romance and made us realize that we have an unbridled romance?" She says, "No, knock it off. There's not going to be any romance between us, bridled or unbridled." So another funny scene with some good banter in it. Ivy's mother says to Reed, "We are big fans of yours." Ivy's mother asks, "How would you label your relationship with my daughter?" Ivy says, "It's just a wedding date. That's it. Nothing more." Before her parents can grill her with a bunch of questions, she pulls Reed away. They go for a walk. She says, I need to go do some stuff for this wedding." He says, "Well, how about I go with you?" So they go to a bridal shop. He says, "Well, You read my pages. Do you have any questions? So this is a little confusing because she already told him earlier that they were good. So I'm not sure why he's asking her again, but anyway. She asks, have you ever read any romance? She says, why are you afraid of love? He says, love is great, but romance, that's a different story. Then he says, I want to learn how to write romance from you. She says, the first thing you have to learn is conflict. He says, whoa, whoa, I want my characters in love. I don't want them in conflict. She says, love isn't an absence of conflict. Love helps you deal with conflict. She says, I have an idea that might help with your rewrite. Reed says, as far as I can tell, romantic conflict is just a misunderstanding that can be cleared up with a simple conversation. Obviously, this guy has seen some of these romantic made-for-TV movies because he's spot on with that statement. She says it's not that simple when your heart is on the line. He says romance's only risk is a broken heart. And she says, only? What are you talking about? She says, haven't you ever experienced jealousy, regret, or missed opportunity? He says, you're being a little dramatic. Then she dumps her snow cone all over his undershirt. They run into Zach. Oh, here comes Zach again. They tell him they have been experiencing romance all day long. And he says, no, I'm not seeing it between you two. Then Zach walks away and Reed puts his arm around Ivy because Zach is still looking at him. Later, they show up at this barbecue that the bride and groom are having for all the families. Ivy says, you ready to get grilled? And he laughs and says, haha, getting grilled at a barbecue, get it? She says, come on, you better be serious. Aunt Edith is no joke. He meets the bride and groom, Sarah and Alberto. Then Sarah introduces him to Aunt Edith. And Aunt Edith wants to know or wants to hear about their first date. So Reed hems and haws around and says, let me think. All right, we went out to dinner. He begins describing their dinner and says that Ivy ordered coconut cake for dessert. Zach chimes in and says, wait a minute, hold on there. Ivy is allergic to coconut. Ivy interrupts and says, that is why I sent it back. So then Ivy pulls Reed away. After the barbecue, a bocce ball game breaks out for some reason. Reed gets caught cheating by kicking Ivy's ball with his foot, putting it in a better position. So we get an awe moment right here. This shows that he cares about Ivy and wants her to win this game. Then he asks her, what's your favorite thing to do at the beach? She says, reading. And then she asks him, what's your favorite thing to do? Then we see Reed trying to teach Ivy how to roller skate. And what's funny about this scene is that Reed says his favorite thing to do at the beach is to go roller skating or rollerblading, but it's clear that Russell, the actor playing Reed, can't skate. He's like wobbling all around and he's holding on to Katrina for dear life, trying not to fall. But I can't say anything because I don't know how to rollerblade or roller skate either. Next, we see them at some ice cream social that the wedding party is having. After the ice cream social, they play a pass the orange game, which consists of putting an orange, between your chin and your chest and passing it to the next person in line. Then the last person in line has to drop it into a basket. Then after the orange pass game, they have a tug of war. Ivy and Reed take a walk on the beach. Reed asks about Zach again. Ivy says he is overly competitive. He asks, why did you ever date him? She says, well, we work in the same field. I know he's annoying, but he knows his stuff, not just in business, but with the arts. He loves literature and he is a reader. Plus, we have common friends. Reed mentions he got grilled by her dad at the ice cream social, and she says, what did he ask you? Then we find out that both Ivy and Reed went to school near each other, that they used to eat at the same places. The next day, Reed tells Ivy some new ideas he has for his book. They sit down to have some grilled pineapple that Reed made. Ivy asks him, "What do you have against romance?" He says, "Romance is inherently flawed." He says, "Romance is characters hiding in the candlelight instead of the clear light of day." I have no idea what that means. He says, "People doing romantic gestures are trying too hard to impress. They are not showing their real self." And then he says, he doesn't want his characters to be unflawed. She raises her voice and argues that romance is flawed. Now, I am completely confused here because they agree that the characters have to be flawed, but yet they start arguing on something that they both agree on, which makes no sense to me. She says, "Romance is not about being perfect or your best. It's about being yourself," which is exactly what he said earlier. So why is she arguing with him? I don't know. All right, so this scene is confusing for me anyway. I have a clip. I want to play it. Let me know what you think here.
Okay, what is it? Explain this to me. What do you have against romance writing?
Okay, here's the deal. Romance is inherently flawed. It's characters hiding in the candlelight instead of the clear light of day.
Candlelight doesn't hide anything. It creates intimacy.
It's people, characters, trying too hard to impress, only showing the highlight reel moments and not the real life routine.
Unless you make it routine like your dad did.
I don't want my characters to be unflawed and glorified.
Romance characters are flawed!
Oh, come on. They seem perfect all the time, or at least the best at whatever it is they do.
Romance is not about being the best, okay? Romance is about being yourself with someone who brings out the best.
So once again, they're arguing on something that they both agree on. I don't know. Then we see Ivy, her sister, and the bride getting pampered at some spa. The bride asks Ivy, "How serious are things with you and Reed?" Ivy says, "We are still getting to know each other. He is different than what I expected. I like it. Plus, he is a good writer." The bride says, "What's it like? What's it feel like to have two men competing over you?" Ivy says, "No one is competing for me." Then she asks, "Where is Zach's date?" The bride says, "I invited her, but she didn't show up." Then the bride asks Ivy, "What happened with you and Zach?" And once again, Ivy dodges the question and doesn't answer it. Reed's sister calls and asks him how the writing is going. He says, "Ivy and I are weaving the romance into the story." And he says, "I am at the point where the hero of my story realizes he has found the person who fills his heart with joy, but he is scared to admit how he feels." And his sister and us viewers realize he is talking about himself and Ivy, not about the characters in his book. Let me move out of the way. There you can see, there's Reed on the phone with his sister. Ivy tells her sister that her parents really like Reed. And when it comes time for her and Reed to break up, her parents are going to be disappointed. Her sister asks, "Have you ever thought that maybe you are interested in Reed?" Ivy says, "Yeah, right. As a writer, nothing more." Her sister says, "Maybe you are afraid of romance because of what happened with you and Zach." Again, what happened between her and Zach? I want to know. Ivy won't tell anyone. So Ivy again doesn't say anything. Zach pulls Ivy aside and asks, "Can we talk?" He says, "I've been doing everything I can to make you jealous and to get your attention." He says, "I know I messed up in our relationship and I want you back." And immediately I think of the Jackson 5 song, "I Want You Back." "Oh, baby, give me one more chance. I want you back. Ooh, ooh, baby, I want you back." She says, "Look, pal, it's over and there's nothing you can do to get me back." And then Zach says, "Be careful of Reed. He could just be using you to get an editing contract." And she says, "Right, because that's something you would do." The bride asks Reed, will you help me write my vows? I need something romantic. And Reed says, huh, I don't think I'm the person you should be asking. She says, but you are a writer. And he says, yeah, but I've always seen romance as a meaningless pageantry, a show that we put on for others instead of showing our true selves. Then the bride gets all upset. Now she thinks that maybe her fiance has been putting on an act this whole time. She says, maybe I don't know the guy I'm marrying. Ivy tries to calm her down and also gives Reed some mean looks. Then her fiance brings her a sweater because it is cold. She looks at the sweater, looks at Ivy, and says, I'm going to marry this guy. So I guess that's all it takes. I guess to get a bride, you just need to bring a woman a sweater. I need to make a note of that. Carry a sweater wherever you go. Next day, Reed sees Ivy reading the changes he made to his book and asks, what do you think of my rewritten pages? He says, I made my main characters apologize. And she says, is this imitating life? He says, okay, I'm sorry about yesterday. I screwed up. But they made up. The wedding is still on. She says, your romance writing has gotten better, even though you are still clueless when it comes to romance. She then asks, can I use your rewritten manuscript as a sample for the presentation that I need to do to get this promotion that I want? She says, it will be an example of the similar cross genre that the subdivision that she wants to add to this publishing company she works for. He says, okay, no problem. You can use it. I'm in. Then the bride tells Ivy that Zach's date is a girl he found on some dating app and that they aren't really dating. He just got her to make Ivy jealous. So then Ivy confesses to her mother and the bride that she and Reed aren't really together. She also confesses to her sister that she has developed feelings for Reed. Her sister knew it all along. She then tells Reed that she told her family that their relationship is fake. The bride and groom ask Reed if he will walk Ivy down the aisle because one of the groomsmen won't be able to make the wedding. Reed then gets an idea and runs off to write. Now we're up to the conflict part of the movie. Trouble starts brewing when Ivy sees Reed outside the window of her parents' beach house. He's shaking hands with Zach on the beach. What's going on there? Time for the wedding. Reed is a no-show. Zach asks Ivy, are you looking for Reed? She says, yes. He says, oh, he must be at the bank because I just made him a ton of money. She says, what are you talking about, Willis? He says, I got him a deal with Lehman. That's Ivy's competition. They are going to give him twice what your publishing company was going to offer him. Ivy says he wouldn't do that. Zach says he did exactly what I told you he was going to do. That is why you need me around. No one needs you around there, Zach boy. The bride gets ready to walk down the aisle. Then suddenly Reed shows up. She makes all the wedding guests wait and asks Reed 3 times, where were you? He says, I went to town to sign a contract. Ivy says, you signed with my competition. He says, no, I didn't. What are you talking about? I signed with your publishing company. Oh, so Zach lied. Now, as soon as the bride and groom, then the bride and groom, I got to tell you, they have the fastest wedding I've ever seen. As soon as the bride gets to the end of the aisle and gets at the altar, she slaps a ring on her fiance's finger. The person officiating the wedding says, you may now kiss the bride. That's it, nothing else. No, do you take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? To love, honor, cherish, and blah, blah, blah? Nope, none of that. They just slap the ring on and start kissing. Maybe that's how people get married in Miami. Reed explains to Ivy, I left to sign the contract with your publishing company, so you could use my rewrite in your presentation and get this promotion that you want. He then confesses his feelings for her. She says, I feel the same. They kiss, and that is the end. Oh, and there they are kissing right there in the corner. Pretty good smoochy poo. So that's the end of the movie. And I'm thinking, wait, it can't be over. They never explained why Reed was shaking hands with Zach on the beach. Ivy never explained why she broke up with Zach. Everyone kept asking her, but she never says. They never showed Ivy confronting Zach and asking him why he lied to Reed about signing a contract with some other publishing company. Those are the scenes that I wanted to see. So I'm a little disappointed that I kind of feel like I didn't get my money's worth. So this movie was not a Great American Family original, and you could tell it was a movie that they acquired from some streaming service. The movie's okay. It's not great though, but it's not bad. It has its moments. It did have some funny, quick back and forth banter that I liked. I appreciated that. And it did have some funny parts that made me laugh, but also it had some parts where some of the humor missed the mark. Some of the scenes didn't make sense, like that scene that I played earlier with Ivy and Reed arguing over something that they both agreed on. And also didn't make sense that Reed was shaking hands with Zach on the beach there at the end. I don't know what that was all about. So this movie is not as good as the January movies, although I still enjoyed it. Just not as much as I enjoyed the January ones. It felt kind of like a letdown after the January movies, because they were all three of those were really good. But you know, it's understandable because you can't knock it out of the park with every movie and every month of the year. If you haven't seen it, let me tell you, enjoy it for what it's worth. Don't expect too much. So like I said, it's an okay watch. Now, this weekend, there's a lot going on Great American Family. On Saturday, a movie premieres A Charming Valentine, which I'm looking forward to because it has a Valentine theme. And I have a promo here for it. Let's take a look at it, see what this movie's all about.
Premiering Saturday, February 11th at 8.
I have a track record of turning startups into successful businesses.
I'm gonna make it my mission to show you why this place is special.
Money may make the world go round, but love,
Your chariot awaits.
can make time stand still.
No, grab your jacket.
Oh no, you've got that look in your eyes.
Let's go.
A Charming Valentine premieres Saturday, February 11th at 8. Part of Great American Valentines on Great American Family.
So that premieres tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Eastern, Saturday, on Great American Family. I'm looking forward to that one because I like holiday-themed movies. Now, on Sunday on Great American Family, not only is the big game on, but so is the Great American Rescue Bowl, hosted by Beth Stern at 10 a.m. Eastern. And then following the Great American Rescue Bowl at noon is a live telethon, To the Rescue Pupathon, hosted by Scott Baio, Mariel Hemingway, and Tommy Habib. So Sunday is full of cute dogs and cats on Great American Family. So it should be a fun one. And all the animals, of course, are up for adoption. So if you're looking for a pet, there you go. So let me know what you thought about Romantic Rewrite. You can send me an email at chad@greatamericanchat.com. or find me on social media at GACTV Podcast and at Chad Maurice. Until next time, you keep the faith, keep smiling, keep your friends close, and keep your Great American Family closer.